It's 3 a.m. and people in my office haven't stopped staring at their computer screens. Posted by You Shall Not Pass 121. I absent-mindedly flicked the switch to turn off my computer monitor. It was 5:30 p.m. and I was finally done for the day. I couldn't wait to get out of there. It was Friday and I was eager for the weekend. Yearning to wind down and forget about work for a day or two. I worked for a publishing house called Raven Mill Books as an editorial assistant, a lifelong dream of mine. I spent most of my day reading. Granted, the stories aren't always compelling, but hey, I still loved immersing myself in the work of others, whatever it may be. I turned to face Patricia, the girl that always sat next to me. I think she was in marketing. I was never sure, and she wasn't very talkative. "I'm done for the day, see you Monday," I said, picking up my handbag. My bag fell from my weak grasp as I glimpsed her face. She had this permanent grimace that seemed to be fixed to her features. Her mouth was twisted, as if she was in pain, and the color of her flesh was that of pure snow. It was as if someone had sculpted her face to be in a perpetual state of fear. But it was her eyes that chilled the blood in my veins. They were a deep, dark red, like two little scarlet ruby diamonds, and I could see tiny droplets forming on the edge of her damp eyelashes, tears. I had never seen fear like it. It was overwhelming. It terrified me. "Pat?" I said meekly. She was so still, so silent, an unmoving statue. I touched her arm and it was cold, hard and rigid. If I didn't know better, and if it weren't for the distorted expression that lined her face, I'd think she was dead. She was looking at something on her screen. Something that was making her look and act this way. I tore my gaze away from her ghostly face and directed it toward her screen. It was blank, nothing but white noise and static. What in the hell was she looking at? I wondered to myself. I stood up, hoping to call someone. Anyone. This wasn't normal, I knew that. Perhaps Pat had suffered some sort of breakdown? That thought had crossed my mind. But then I would remember her face and the fear would grip me tighter than ever. Something wasn't right. When I scanned the room, I nearly passed out. They were all just sitting there, faces glued to their screens with wet and bleeding eyes. Every single one of them. I saw my friend Triss, over in sales, and her boss Miranda. All wide-eyed and unblinking. I saw Ursula, Ruby, Nathan and Tom, all my friends, everyone I knew. Every single one staring at their computer screens. I walked toward Triss, my eyes filling with tears. "Triss?" The room was so quiet, so completely still that I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears beating incessantly. It was deafening. Triss didn't respond, didn't even flinch. Just continued to sit and stare at her screen, eyes ruby red and weeping. As I neared, I noticed her trembling, ever so slightly, the fear just radiating off her body. She was glowing, almost. My hand reached out to touch her auburn hair. It felt dry to the touch, hardened. As if someone had poured wax all over it. My hand traveled down to her shoulder. I prodded it gently. No response. I'd just about had enough, so I spun her chair around so that she faced me. "Triss. Snap the fuck out of it," I said, shaking her. I stared into her glassy eyes and saw my own horrified face reflected in them. At that moment, she began convulsing violently. Her body shook with a fervor I had never seen before. Her bloodshot eyes rolled back into her head, glistening in the pale evening light as she shook. I loosened my grip and stood, watching in horror. I fumbled for my phone, desperate to call the police and the ambulance, the whole fucking cavalry. I attempted to dial 999, but my heart sank when I saw that there was no reception, no fucking signal. My phone lay, defeated, in my sweated palm. I looked at the quivering body of Triss and my eyes widened in horror as I watched her change, morph into something entirely different. Her convulsions had worsened and she had fallen to the floor. Her mouth was grotesquely askew, white foam dribbled from the sides. I could see her veins, they were thick and bulging a deep, overpowering red. I saw them quiver as the blood coursed through them. Then she screamed, her mouth opened unbelievably wide, and within I saw that she had bitten her tongue nearly in half. I felt powerless. All I could do was sit there and watch her die from whatever the fuck was happening around me. Her veins continued to swell, growing ever bigger, and before I could blink they fucking exploded. Before she succumbed, I heard her whisper something. Something that sent shivers down my spine. "Mum, please." I didn't know why those words escaped her dying mouth. Why was she begging? You see, Trish' mum had been dead for 3 years. She died in a car accident, was impaled by a fucking truck. Apparently it was macabre. Before Trish's blood had a chance to dry on my brow, Miranda caught my attention. She was concealed behind her screen, so I couldn't see her properly, but I could see the top of her head from where I was. Something about her shrouded demeanor frightened me even more. I knew what she was doing. Of course I already knew she was glued to her screen like everyone else, but it was what I could hear that sent spikes through my heart. She was fucking laughing. I observed her head move up and down like a bobbing apple. I got to my feet, slowly with my eyes closed. Believe it or not, I was too scared to look. When I did eventually open them, I let out this inhuman howl that I am certain was not my voice. Miranda's face was a ghastly, terrifying sight. Her eyes were unmoving, unblinking just like the rest of them, but there was something strange and different about her mouth. She was smiling. A wide, unearthly smile that spread from ear to ear. Tears streamed down her face. I could see the dread in her eyes. Why was she smiling? Laughing even? I didn't know, and I don't think I wanted to know. Miranda? I didn't know what else to fucking say. She didn't answer me, of course. Just continued to stare at the nothingness on her screen, laughing quietly, her body trembling. Her laugh grew louder and louder with each passing minute. It was unnatural, like a witch's cackle. It was as if she couldn't catch her breath with each bout of ever-increasing laughter. It was downright creepy. She wouldn't stop. Her laugh became deep, guttural and dry. As if her throat was parched, as dry as a bone. Then she began choking, hands clawing at her throat. Still, she never once shifted her gaze away from her screen. In between fits of suffocation, she managed to say something. "Philip, why are you doing this to me?" I didn't know Miranda well, so I had no clue who Philip was. Her head fell, hitting her desk with a bang. I heard her skull crack. I was fucking done. I had to get out of there. I rushed downstairs, but when I got there, I realized that I couldn't leave. The doors were sealed shut. I banged and shouted at the door, my salvation just meters away from me, but whatever was happening in this building, it didn't want me to leave. I couldn't leave. Why was I the only one that didn't get affected? I turned my screen off before everyone else, I was sure of that. So it was pure, dumb luck. That was when I saw something pale and gangling just out of the corner of my eye. Just out of reach. It moved so swiftly I was sure it was a trick of the light, but it petrified me even more because I knew it wasn't a trick of the light. Something was there, lurking, dwelling in the dark corners of the office. Always just out of reach. I felt like I was being watched. Not knowing what else to do, I made my way back to the main desks. I could go nowhere else. When I walked back in, the sight that greeted me was beyond words, beyond anything normal. Every single person in the room was laying face down, face hugging their keyboards. Their heads, oh my God, their heads. They were all shriveled, like those perfectly preserved shrunken human heads that are used for grotesque rituals. It looked like they had been left out in the sun for too long, all desiccated. The skin was far too tight, the color a dirty brown, mummified. Their eyes were sunken, practically non-existent. A slimy, luminous liquid trickled out of their open mouths. I sunk to the floor, feeling so helpless, the tears falling like raindrops from my tired eyes. What was I to do? Then I heard a voice that I hadn't heard in 10 years. "You'll be okay, you'll see. I'm here for you." It was the voice of my brother Timothy. Timothy has been dead for 10 years. I covered my ears. Please, leave me alone. I can't do that, Dulcie. You need to come and look at me. See me. It sounded like my brother, only I knew that it wasn't. I was suddenly overwhelmed by this feeling I couldn't describe, that I didn't recognize. It was a terrifying craving. I wanted to see Timothy. I longed to see him. Tim, is it really you? I said, my own voice sounding so alien to me. It's me, Dulcie. Come to me. I saw the hideous shadows again. They have multiplied now. Lurking in the corners, but they were getting closer now. Before I could stop myself, I got up and like a robot, I walked toward my computer screen. Nothing else mattered now. My brother's voice whizzed like a roller coaster in my frazzled mind, so quiet and yet so convincing. I knew what I had to do. I just didn't know if I could do it. I'm sitting by my computer screen now. I haven't turned it on yet. I don't know what time it is. I do know that everyone around is now dead. I still can't get out, and I still can't call the police. I'm writing this on my phone because I want there to be a record of what's happened here today, just in case I don't make it. There is only one thing left for me to do. I know that now. I realize it and I feel it in my heart, pulsating like a tumor. The only way out is to look.